Let me ask you, do you feel like an overtalker? Are you just unable to stop talking when someone asks you a question? By the end of this episode, you're going to understand what's really going on there. You're going to feel such a relief to know that it's actually quite normal and what you can do about it so that you feel more empowered when those moments happen. You're mid sentence, right? And all of a sudden you feel that you just don't know where to go next. That's usually the moment where you recognize internally that, I might not be able to cleanly answer this question or state my point. It can make us feel so strange inside, like this adrenaline rush happens and we're suddenly very self conscious. And I want you to know that you're not alone. I have experienced that many times, and there's nothing wrong with you. Phew, like let your shoulders relax, just take a deep breath. It doesn't mean you lack intelligence. It doesn't mean that you're actually an overtalker at all. It just means your body hasn't learned complete safety yet when it comes to visibility. In other words, a question being asked of you, or in an interview moment, or if you're on a panel and you're being asked questions, the wayfinding and the human experience through wayfinding is unfamiliar enough where your nervous system is reading it as fight or flight. And so it's not a flaw. It's not a bad habit. It's not a lack of confidence. I really want you to know that and feel good about it. It's protection. It's protection. Your body is just trying to keep you safe. When we think about the moment of rambling and we've caught ourselves in that moment, I want you to know 100% that it is safe to take a deep breath, to literally just stop. So when you catch yourself, stop. It's safe to do that. People do it all the time when they cough or they need to swallow or they just get lost in their own thoughts. People pause naturally in conversation. So it's not going to make it strange. Pause to take a breath, and you're going to feel a sense of groundedness enter the body in that moment, okay? Here's another thing I want you to realize about over talking is that our voice, our body speeds up everything when it doesn't feel safe. So your breathing, your hand gestures, body language, eye contact, as well as your voice all speeds up when we don't feel safe. So again, it's not you, it's your nervous system. The other key piece about rambling is really interesting here, and that's that silence probably can feel risky for you. Is that right? Let me know in the comments below. I totally get that. It's because silence could be interpreted for you as you don't know. And so a lack of you talking, even if it is rambling and you don't want to be talking, somehow in your identity has been taught to you that it means you're not intelligent, which couldn't be further from the truth. But again, that's what it reads like to the nervous system. If you have someone who has been interrupted a lot as you were growing up, or maybe in a previous relationship, or even current relationships, a pause can be a threat because we're anticipating someone is about to interject and cut us off. And so we have this feeling of scarcity even inside of a conversation where, my God, if I stop to breathe, if I stop to think, if I stop to find my words that I really want to say, someone might interrupt me. And so over talking in many ways becomes this protection mechanism. It helps us to maintain control, or at least the perception of it, to prevent interruption. So I want to bring it back to a previous episode where I mentioned that readiness was never a requisite for success. It's not. And we're never getting ready. Inside of my world, we are resolved. And resolved energy is a power within you. And so what that feels like in a conversation is you're reading people's faces and you're reading body language less and less. And you're really focused instead on the information you want to give. And you also know that you're going to have maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes to talk to this person. You're going to have a full-on conversation, which means that that person gets a chance to ask you a question. You'll respond a little. They ask a question. You ask them a question. And there's a volley back and forth. In other words, if you learned and taught your nervous system that it is okay to give a little answer and then stop, little answer and stop, you'll teach your body that you don't have to speak so much on the first pass through an answer. And this will help you relax in the moment and just trust that, natural conversation means a back and forth, a back and forth. And you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes your perfectionism gets in the way, and we just want to know that people get us, right? We just want to know that we're understood right away. But that reads as actually a lack of security. It reads as an insecurity because it has pick me energy. And it's not because you are broken. It's not because you're a terrible person. You're not flawed. You're really not. It's just that moments of visibility where you're asking to explain yourself feels like a threat from all of the experiences you've had in your past. So just cut yourself all the slack, truly, and give yourself so much grace because you've learned that fear. And guess what? The good news is you get to unlearn that pattern too. So let's talk about how to dissolve the shame, how to dissolve the fear of being interrupted and this loop of explaining so that we can actually trust a pause, and that we can trust a pause with an energy in our body that just says, I know that I'm not going to get interrupted. Because as we know, the reality that we experience is the reality that we have inside of us first. So first and foremost, we just need to know that we're not going to be interrupted anymore. And we also need to know that if we are interrupted, it's not the end of the world, and it says everything about the person listening to you who did the interrupting and nothing about you. In fact, what we get to do is we get to start to align to this kind of wayfinding in conversation and in interviews or in podcast recordings or on stage, whenever there's these ad hoc moments where people want you to explain or when you're making content, the wayfinding of explaining yourself is built and harnessed before the conversation. So it's not that we're in conversations and then we find the best way to explain things. No, it's actually a nervous system thing, which means that behind closed doors, before anyone is looking, before you're in any high stakes conversations that really excite the nervous system, that you are rehearsing these types of interactions. This is such a huge part of Vocal Honey, huge part of my ecosystem, and a huge part of my personal practice. And it has transformed my relationship to my voice and hundreds of other women that I've worked with over the years in and out of the Vocal Honey program. If you rehearse the outcome that you want and feel the energy of that outcome now and repeat it several times, when that moment actually shows up, your nervous system has already gone through that big moment. So let's say, for example, you have a job interview coming up, or you're going to be speaking on a panel on stage. Instead of waiting for that big scary moment to come and trigger you and freak you out even more and get you talking even more, it is imperative that you start to rehearse and emotionally and mentally visualize and rehearse that day on stage before the day your senses read that you are actually in the experience, because your brain doesn't know the difference between what we imagine and what's actually happening in front of us, and our senses can taste and feel and hear and touch. When you do this, you are training your brain that this experience has already happened. And then you repeat it over and over again. The belief becomes this has already happened and I've experienced it multiple times. So by, again, the time it actually happens, you've already visualized yourself speaking calmly. You've visualized yourself pausing. You visualize yourself giving great, calm eye contact, facial gestures, hand expressions. You've also felt already the internal steadfastness of I belong and I'm doing a great job. And it's fun to articulate what I'm here to say. And the way that I'm saying it feels so damn good. And then you can start to rehearse even people's expressions and reactions back to you. Now, this is where it gets really fun. Go ahead and rehearse someone interrupting you. Like, for example, let's say you've got an annoying coworker who constantly butts in. You can rehearse that coworker interrupting, but rehearse a different response than agitation. Rehearse a feeling of, oh, that's just them again. And I'm glad they're so excited about what I'm saying. I'm glad that I can stimulate them. That must mean I'm a thought leader. And then feel yourself neutralizing that experience, not getting caught up, and recovering with a feeling of authority in your body. Because guys, the conversations that you want to be having, the resolve in your voice, that vocal honey just going out into the world and creating massive impact that has no pick me energy and no fear of pausing, that authority vibe that you know you can project, it's very possible. And it's inside of you right now. You know how to do this. But the nervous system has a little bit of a blocker, thinking that endless talking is the way to keep you safe. Once you start doing this mental rehearsal at home, here's some things you can look forward to. Number one, being able to hold space and hold attention on you, visibility, becomes easier. It doesn't rattle your nervous system so much and throw you into a state of excitement where adrenaline overhauls your mouth and makes you talk really fast. Okay, so know that that's a benefit and will naturally start to soften and you'll feel more calm because of mental rehearsal. Mental rehearsal will also allow over talking, over explaining to decrease once your identity feels more settled and in place. I am someone who doesn't overtalk, but gets to the point simply and in a playful way. I also want to add in here that calm speech comes from truly knowing what you stand for. And this brings us into a little bit of a topic of knowing what your voice is here to speak on and what it's not. And when you remember that it's really good to just talk about what you've embodied and to say, you know, I don't know, or I'll have to find out, or I've never thought about that before. And those statements are okay. It helps you tighten up your boundaries. It helps you kind of anchor into, I don't know about that, but this is what I do know. And it helps you feel the authority to kind of pass the mic and let someone else explain in a group setting. You don't have to be the authority on everything, in other words. So just cut yourself some slack. I know you're a people pleaser. I know that you're a perfectionist like myself. We don't have to have an answer for everything. And the last point I want to leave you with is that authority is built behind closed doors, not in the moment. This is where the identity practice, the energy practice, the mental rehearsal practice becomes so key. And I actually have an audio library of rehearsal practices for you coming up. So just stick close to this channel. Make sure you hit subscribe. Get on my newsletter if this interests you and you know you need this so that you don't miss out.